Welcome to the Pardes channel. Today we explain Numbers chapter 31 in a clear and simple way, step by step. So here we are at a totally pivotal moment in the text. The Israelites are camped on the plains of Moab, right by the Jordan River. The long journey through the desert is finally ending, and God has one last, very specific mission for Moses before he passes away.
We've got a lot to cover, so here's our roadmap. First up, we'll look at the context and the battle itself. Then, we're diving into Moses' unexpected response to the captives, the laws of spiritual purification, how they divided up the massive spoils, an absolutely miraculous military report, and finally, some key life lessons we can take away from all this.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, Context and the Battle, which covers verses 1 through 12.
The chapter kicks off with God giving Moses a final mission, to take vengeance, or nikam, on the Midianites. And to do this, Moses doesn't just, send in a random mob. He drafts a super specific group. We're talking exactly 1,000 men from each of the 12 tribes. That makes a highly unified, elite force of 12,000 soldiers. And they don't go alone. They deploy with Phinehas, the priest's son, who's carrying holy articles and signaling trumpets. This really shows us that this is a strictly spiritual, divinely ordered operation.
Now, verses 7 through 12 describe a victory that is just absolute. Every single Midianite man on the battlefield is killed, and that includes their 5 kings, Evi, Rechem, Zor, Hur, and Reba. And verse 8 drops a pretty massive detail on us. They also executed Balaam, the sorcerer who had tried to curse Israel earlier on. The army burns the towns to the ground, takes the women, the children, and massive herds as plunder, and then they head back to the plains of Moab.
Moving on to Section 2, Moses responds to captives, looking at verses 13 through 18.
So the victorious army comes back loaded with spoils. Moses, Eleazar the priest, and the community leaders actually go completely outside the camp to meet them. But spoiler alert, this is not a happy victory parade. As the commanders walk up, Moses reacts with immediate, intense anger. He looks at the captives and basically asks them point blank, "Wait, have you allowed all the women to live?" Now, you've got to wonder, why is Moses, a guy known for being incredibly humble, so furious here?
Well, verse 16 gives us the exact answer. Moses reminds them that these specific women were the very same ones who, following the sinister advice of Balaam, actually seduced the Israelites into idolatry over at a place called Peor. And if you remember, that incident caused a really devastating plague. So Moses is furious because these military commanders literally just spared the exact people who had caused a deadly spiritual catastrophe for Israel not that long ago.
Because of that history, Moses issues a really strict, uncompromising command in verses 17 and 18. He orders the execution of the boys and the women who could have participated in that prior idolatrous seduction, basically stopping these hostile lineages right in their tracks. However, the innocent young girls who had absolutely no part in the whole matter of Peor, they are spared, and they're meant to be integrated into the Israelite community.
Okay, let's look at Section 3, Laws of Spiritual Purification, which covers verses 19 through 24.
War, even when it's directly commanded by God, still brings people into contact with death. And in the Torah, that creates a state of severe ritual impurity known as tumat meth. So before any of these soldiers can even set foot back inside the holy camp, Moses tells them they have a mandatory 7-day waiting period outside. And it's not just waiting. On the 3rd and 7th days, the soldiers and their captives have to go through a really meticulous spiritual cleansing process.
This is where Eleazar the priest steps in to explain exactly how to purify all the inanimate spoils, and it's a brilliant look into the logic of Torah purification. He explains that anything heat-resistant, like gold, silver, bronze, iron, tin, and lead, has to literally be put through the fire to be made clean, and then it's sprinkled with cleansing water. But what about delicate stuff like cloth or wood that would just burn up? Well, those are simply washed in water, and only after they wash their clothes on the 7th day are the soldiers officially considered clean.
All right, so now that the men and the spoils are all spiritually purified, the community has to deal with a totally staggering logistical challenge in verses 25 through 30. God commands Moses and Eleazar to take a precise, exhaustive census of every single captured person and animal. Seriously, every last one.
Which brings us to Section 4, Dividing the Massive Spoils, covering verses 25 through 47.
Now, the text turns into this highly structured mathematical breakdown, because this is not just some chaotic free-for-all, right? God mandates a perfectly balanced economic system here.
It's a strict 50-50 split of all the spoils. Exactly half goes to the 12,000 soldiers who actually fought, which heavily rewards them for putting their lives on the line. And the other half? That goes to the rest of the Israelite community, making sure that the whole nation gets to benefit from God's victory.
But wait, there's another layer to this math. A mandatory tribute, or mekes, that's set apart for the Lord. For the soldiers, their tribute rate is incredibly small, just 1 out of every 500 items, and that's given directly to Eleazar the priest. Now, for the community at large who, remember, stay behind and didn't fight, their tribute rate is quite a bit higher. It's 1 out of every 50. And this portion goes straight to the Levites, who are the tribe responsible for all the heavy lifting and maintenance of the Lord's tabernacle.
To really grasp how crazy this math worked out, take a look at the total plunder recorded in verse 32. 675,000 sheep. I mean, just let that number sink in for a second. We're talking about an almost unimaginable scale of wealth suddenly moving into the Israelite camp. And hey, that is just the sheep. There are also 72,000 cattle, 61,000 donkeys, and 32,000 captive women.
Let's actually run the exact numbers for the community's half, which we see in verses 42 through 46. They received 337,500 sheep, 36,000 cattle, 30,500 donkeys, and 16,000 people. And out of this massive half, Moses faithfully followed God's instruction to the letter, taking 1 out of every 50 to hand over to the Levites. By just stepping up and carefully following obedience, the entire economic structure of the nation was literally transformed overnight.
Next up is Section 5, Miraculous Zero Casualties, covering verses 48 through 54.
Right as all this crazy accounting wraps up, the military officers approach Moses with a report from the battlefield that honestly defies all human logic. I'm quoting verse 49 directly here. Your servants have counted the soldiers under our command, and not one is missing. Just think about that. 12,000 frontline soldiers went into brutal, hand-to-hand combat against 5 kings, and they suffered literally 0 casualties. It is a profound, undeniable miracle. There's just no other way to explain it.
And these commanders, they are so overwhelmed by this divine protection that they take immediate action. They decide to bring a voluntary offering to the Lord to make atonement, a coffer, for their souls, and just to express deep, deep gratitude. They bring from their own personal plunder handcrafted gold armlets, bracelets, signet rings, earrings, and necklaces. Now keep in mind, this wasn't some mandated tax. This was a totally free will offering of pure gold.
So Moses and Eleazar accept this gold, and the text makes a point to note the specific weight, 16,750 shekels of gold. That equates to roughly 420 pounds of solid gold being brought right into the tent of meeting. It ends up standing as this permanent, tangible memorial for the Israelites before the Lord, just a massive testament to his miraculous protection.
Finally, let's wrap up with Section 6, Lessons from Chapter 31.
Let's look at our practical takeaways.
So, what can we actually extract from the simple meaning of this text to improve ourselves today? First off, the importance of following instructions completely and carefully. From the exact military draft to the way they divided the spoils, their success came from following God's framework step by step. Second, we've got to acknowledge the hidden miracles in our daily lives. Just as those commanders realized not a single man was missing, we need to pause and count our blessings. Third, share the fruits of your success. The soldiers risked everything, but they still shared half the wealth with the community. And finally, express genuine gratitude through tangible action, just exactly like the commanders did with their massive offering of gold.
As you go about your week, ask yourself, what hidden, zero-casualty miracles are happening in your own life that you haven't stopped to give thanks for yet? Thank you for learning with us. If this helped you understand the chapter better, like, subscribe, and join us for the next chapter.